I was 4 years old. I'm born July 9th, 1997, and I was 4 years old. We were on Pacific Coast time, like we were on that side. We were not on the East Coast time. It was 4 a.m. Essentially, I cut my hair around 7 a.m. East Coast time. When my mother, I mean, everyone was like knocked out. And Cindy and I shared a room. Cindy's my sister, you guys. And my mother and my dad were like knocked out. And I'm gonna line the bottom lines, with some whites first. My parents were knocked out to the world. It used to like take forever to go to sleep. Like I really would. I would be a nightmare, you guys. I know my children are gonna be bad as shit because I was bad as shit. So, but I mean, I'm hoping, for the best one. I was like just sitting in my room and Cindy was knocked out. I had my hair in braids around that time. And I remember sitting down with scissors. And I remember thinking how each braid was so important. Like I knew the importance of each braid. I knew it. But I wanted to give it away as gifts. Like I wanted to give the people I loved these braids, which sounds absolutely crazy to some, but in some cultures this is actually something that you do. When there is a death or a passing of somebody, you actually cut off your hair as a symbolism of almost giving them some form of praise, being able to grieve essentially and show the power of their life, which was like the vibrations of your hair. You basically take off those positive vibrations and sacrifice them for the person who passed away. And at that time, like, it was a big deal. I mean, any black mommy wake up and her hair gone. Woo! My mother, she didn't know what to do. She was like, oh my God. She woke up, there was sandy blonde, crazy colored hair, like all in the damn sink and in the toilet. Which, if nobody knows, water, because let's break it down. I'm going to break it down now. Hair is a vibration. The sun is basically an extension to the sun, an extension to the vibrations that are around you. So when you have these positive vibrations or you have negative vibrations, you will typically feel it the longer your hair is, which is why people who have locks, it's not dreads up in here because they're not dreadful, but they're lockful, okay? They got beautiful locks. They're lockful up in here. That means they got some luck going on with them because they got way better sense and intuition about what is going on around them and the vibrations that are even around them before they even hear or see or anything. They know because they can feel it, essentially. They're reaching a higher consciousness of self and showing a sense of humility for oneself and one's body and one's mind and one's soul. So that's a beautiful, 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 beautiful thing. So I was cutting off mine as a gift to the people who I love in order to give them positive vibrations because I felt very cheerful as I did this. I felt I was always a very interesting child because even though I was semi-rebellious, I was able to know morals on some level where I wanted to give these positive vibrations to the people around me. I wanted to give good. What it came down to was me realizing that my mother was going to eventually wake up and this needed to be given. It couldn't be taken away from me after I just did this. I need to give it to them in some way or some form. So I put it in water, put it in a sink with a lot of water. I put it in the toilet where there was basically water. Water in itself is one of the highest places you can get vibrations from, you guys. It can really. Have you ever been in a bathtub and you look down and you look at all the vibrations that are around you and you see, like, if you touch it, it goes like, right? It ripples. There's vibrations all around you in the water. I love water. Whenever I feel upset, whenever something is wrong, it's shower time. It's water time. if I'm not journaling in order to deal with it, you know. Vibrations are just so important. They're so important, you guys, if we just pay attention to them. That night, it was midnight, sort of bluish, like in my room. Like, not even midnight, it was like indigo almost, like purple and blue at the same time. I remember looking into the space of the walls. I remember just snipping off each one and saying somebody's name after each braid. And I had a couple of braids. Like, I had a lot of braids at the time, so I was just, really naming names of people who were really, truly important to me and who I was going to give these things to. Me putting it in those vibrations, me putting the hair in the water was me basically trying to give it as much good vibration as I possibly could, give it all the highest vibrations it could, and put it into what is already positive, essentially, and already an extension of what is going on around me. So my mother woke up. She ended up just putting a hat on me, and she was freaking out. Essentially, I was just trying to give. I was trying to get my own hair. I was very happy about what I had done. I thought I had done a very good thing. We're gonna break down the astrology of that day, right? I mean, everybody was like, "Girl, you're just crazy." Somebody was like, "What the fuck, girl? What did you do?" And I was like, I don't know. I just was like, let's just go with it, right? Let's just go with it. So everybody, eventually my hair grew back out and everything. But I'm gonna go into the astrology of that day. There's also gonna be a link below about the Truth About 9/11 documentary that everybody should see. Y'all, when I say I do notes, I mean I do notes. I do research, y'all. I go crazy. I got doctors writing. I go cuckoo's bananas. I go cray-cray. Like, just in general, about all types of topics, all types of stuff, you guys. That's why when I say, tell me topics, I will sit here and journal for literally, whatever topic it was. By my own stance, in my own belief in that particular topic. And I think it's truly important to try to share as much knowledge as we possibly can and try to learn as much as we truly can in order to share the best message. I wanted to cover how Pluto represents change, you guys. It represents that it may be even a dark or unknown or repressed element. And it symbolizes the underworld, essentially. You got Saturn, which is the status quo. It's a mundane plane of existence. It's essentially what we do on an everyday basis, methodical, existing structure, what has remained consistent, essentially. Now, let's look at what happened on that day. There was a big change, obviously, and the status quo was interrupted. Because at that time, Saturn and Pluto were actually in opposition that day. When you put in July 4th, 1776 into the astrological chart, essentially under Dane Radgar, he did an amazing book called The Astrology of America's Destiny. And he focused on the fact that day, if you can put in that date, the day that America declared independence from Great Britain, Saturn and Pluto were at the midpoint of 13 plus Virgo, and they were squared at the U.S. ascendant. That chart was directly activated in the timing of the attack and the event. And Saturn's opposition was across the ascendant and descendant of Pluto, which represented, radical transformation, enormous or painful event of vast magnitude, a death, a rebirth, or an experience. And America essentially did go through a near-death experience collectively as a whole. Whether you knew somebody who was involved in it or not, you felt some form of empathy or vulnerability about the situation and the fact that your home, your place, for the first time, that your home, your place where you're from was for the first time attacked in such a horrible, horrible manner as a whole. It truly did, rock the country. But Saturn and Pluto typically symbolize an earthquake or a volcano, right? So what happens? Let's talk about this, right? The force, that's all underground, right? It's all underground, that's all coming up, 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 up. There's a force going up, which really, if we want to go back to it, that Saturn and Pluto's opposition is really supposed to be an irresistible force up, up, against an immovable object, okay? So let's get into it. Pluto also represents chaos, but what happened to the building? The building fell, correct? The building fell, and it killed a lot of lives in the process. But the way it fell, not supposed to crumble. It's not supposed to go straight down. That's demolition. If it's going straight down, that is demolition. And essentially, if the plane, and you can even look at this in the video that I have linked below, the plane should not have made it out that in one piece. It just shouldn't have. There was many reports of that same type of plane being reported around that time in that year, where a damn bird hit it in the beginning, and there's a damn dent. I mean, it's just, there's a huge ass dent in the beginning of it. So let's look at the fact that in that video down below, the plane makes it out in one fucking piece. It makes it out in one piece, you guys. Because that makes complete sense, right? It makes how does that make any sense? And then it falls completely down. There's a lot of reports of firefighters saying that there's actually bombs and that they could feel the vibration of it coming from below. That there was a lot of explosions that were coming from below them, and they were getting trapped. And they were having difficulty getting out. And a lot of people were having difficulty going out, and they were hearing it going up. So, essentially, let's think about this, you guys. Why in the world, and I mean, this is a really crazy topic, and I'm going to go there. Why in the world would they want such important structures that day to go down in that fashion? And go ahead and look at the details in that video. Look at it. Educate yourself. Get some knowledge about it, because why would they do this? Why would it go down in such a demolition form, almost as if there's bombs underneath it? Set up beforehand, why would they do that in the first place, right? America would never want to seem vulnerable, right? They would never want to seem vulnerable, except for what would it give to America? Anger, right? Fuel the fire that's already going on. One, bring about war, a reason for us to go to war, a reason for us to be angry, a reason for us to not want to connect, not try to understand either. America really wanted invulnerability to be shown. They did not want to come across, obviously, as weak, because it's already a very weak and low point to be attacked in such a broad and huge manner. But Jupiter was one sign ahead of Saturn in Cancer, which I actually am. Eastern astrology, though, I'm a Gemini, and it gets cray-cray over there, girl. Woo! But it's basically when it's in Cancer for the Western astrology, like particularly that day, it's supposed to mean extreme happiness, elevating someone in rank, power, character, stressing love, and brotherhood, which was essentially what I was trying to do and give to the people around me that morning, hours before it was supposed to happen. What happened after 9/11 happened? There was a spiritual nature, right? Because Jupiter and Saturn being combined like that meant social agenda. But spiritual nature in that event was supposed to be, a positive consequence out of the whole thing in general. And when you really look at it, we all began to reach out to victims. There began to be donations. There began to be empathy, sympathy, compassion. Americans were more in touch with the suffering of other people around the world, right? But there was a higher purpose for these events, and it was supposed to be pulling together a common tribe of man. It was supposed to be pulling together America, essentially. And what fashion was America going to pull itself back together in after such an atrocious, or just such a horrible explanation of what had happened and the way that it had happened and the way that it was delivered to the people in the country that were not there. Okay? When we really look at it, with the node of the moon, it was conjunct to the U.S. Venus and the Jupiter in the 7th house of their chart. The event was fated. The generosity of the Americans towards the earth, as well as it to be a stimulant to their anger. So, like I said, although it was fated, although it was something that was planned, it was supposed to bring out the nature of both sides of the generosity of Americans. And it was also supposed to bring out the anger in Americans. And when you really look at it, it's crazy. Saturn was in Gemini, which is the descendant. And Saturn typically means structure. Gemini means twin. You got the twin towers, which fell in such a demolition form. But Saturn in Gemini typically means communication, commerce, trade, which was what? World trade.